start off the lane, they're able to get that first shove and then into the just getting vision down into the aggressive jungle. And Charmer, I hope you didn't leave us. I want to get one last goodbye from you before we get into draft.
But
let's go.
You can enjoy the draft. You can enjoy the draft. I'm going to let you guys take it away. They are ready to get going, and I'm sure that the viewers at home want to see this as well.
See, Charmer's just speaking to us from beyond the nether realm.
The
at
host
this point.
zone.
The host oversees all. He is omniscient and omnipresent. But right now we're in the drafts, Max, and the rest of the players they don't care about omnipresence at this point, because they are present right now in this moment where they have locked in Corki as their first pick.
Yeah, you can tell that both these teams have done their research on the previous series that they've already played in the bracket as well, because NME, Selma has only played Nami so far in this tournament. That was 3 straight games of that champion. And for Cloud9, I mean, Zella's been playing mostly the split pushers for this team. So honestly, for NME, the fact that they are removing these tanks is pretty surprising. It tells us that they are trying to go into the split push style, matching that of Zella as well. So this is pretty interesting, and for Alui, he will have to pull out an entirely different strategy.
Smacks, normally I would take a point right after you, but we just got a Jax lock in, and I know you just spent some cramming time looking into Cloud9's match history. So tell us about this Jax flavor that's coming in.
Yeah, so this Jax pick is likely going into the jungle position. This is not a champion that we see very often, at least definitely not in North America. We have not seen it very much. And this Darius pick locks it in as the jungler too, Rafa, sending the Darius up to Zello. This is a pick that is, I think, very well suited against the jungle meta that we're seeing take shape recently, against things like the Xin Zhao and the Wukong, and sometimes the Camille as well, which is a Taibe special. You have that counter-strike to deny away a lot of the damage that comes through from auto attacks, and I think that is likely where Tarzan's head's at when picking this Jax in the jungle, especially considering it was just nerfed specifically for this role. So looking more like a tech counter pick rather than something to pick every single game, as they did only pick it once.
Yeah, the funny thing about that Jax nerf is that, or change, I should say, I don't remember what they did exactly to make it less viable in jungle. I do know is that what they changed how the Counter-Strike works and made it so that it absorbs, it not only blocks all auto attacks, but also has a little bit of damage reductions on spells. So it's supposed to be more interactive towards champions, and therefore it's considered a lane buff, so that you can pick Jax into champions that not only rely on auto attacks as their primary damage source, but also just if you're laning into spellcasters, think of like Gragas and Malphite as, you know, some of our premier Baron top laners at the moment for some players. But, you know, having it in Jax as in the jungle role, I think you're more prone into opting into skirmishers early on. You have a little bit more agency to be able to fight champions like this in Zao, and then of course there's all this spells that are already coming out. And we've already seen, Smacks, that the way that Cloud9 they want to fight, they want to be able to dive in aggressively. The Leon and the Kai'Sa, great combo. And enemies say, well, if you're going to dive head first, we're going to try to find a way to get you the hell out of our zone.
I really like this Janna Xayah. It's super defensive for the bottom lane of NME. It plays into the disengage style very well, and when you lock in a champion like Janna against all of these melees, it does tend to feel really, really good. So I like that this is the adaptation for NME. It doesn't fit necessarily well with Camille and Xin Zhao, as they are going to dive in themselves, but the fact that they are keeping that heads up and keeping that variety in this composition is really nice.
Twist of Fate. I mean, we've seen this pick either just be a utility bot, or if you're who was the mid laner that we saw that literally just started one-shotting people with gold card, wild card towards the end of the game?
We saw a couple of them, but the late game fantasy for Twisted Fate is certainly one of gigantic burst damage, and despite going for things like the rapid fire cannon as utility, you definitely can still get to that late game. Well, if you get there, of course, that is a pretty big if. You have to get to like the 20-minute mark as this champion. But once that does happen, you can rely on Meals to have the scaling, which has been a really big part of Cloud9's game plan, I would say. Meals very potent on these roaming champions like the Twisted Fate and like his signature Aurelian Soul that he seems to be the only person to appreciate the use of. So maybe this does mean that they're thinking about sending Meals to a side lane right away, as he is more of this roaming style that we typically see from him when he goes there.
The only thing that you would have to be careful about is if you're laning against the Camille, because Hextech Ultimatum puts you in jail, Smacks, and not even Destiny can escape fate, as twisted it might be. Yeah, that is true. But you do have the ability to be able to roam to side lanes. I definitely want to see how well Meals is able to impact the top lane for Zello, if you're able to get Darius ahead. Because then this Camille doesn't actually get to have as fun of a time playing the game. Then you're just more of a utility bot if you're the one that is behind the Darius. And then Darius, I mean, the cool thing about Darius in Wild Rifts, Max, is that normally you wouldn't expect Darius to have a lot of team fighting power or agency, because he always lacks the ability of getting kited out by champions, or peel and disengage is so strong. But you got something that's called a Proto Belt or Rocket Belt boot enchantment. And you know, if you were playing League of Legends when Stridebreaker was first a dash before, now it's just a slow, it basically gave Darius the movement speed gap closing boost that he needed to actually go for fights. And now it's just a permanent thing in Wild Rift as of the moment. So Rocket Belt into Apprehend is actually a legit team fight initiation, and we've seen 5-man pulls from Darius, and it's just so scary if you get caught in one of those.
It's very strong, and Cloud9 has a lot of lockdown to set that one up too. A lot of that's going to come from their new player in Shaded Talent on Leona, trying to find some engage opportunities on this champion. But look at this, Rafa. We are on to the Rift, starting up in this series in the upper semifinals. I want to take a moment to actually address the Jax changes slightly more, because like you said, they did give him some more power into the Counter-Strike, but what they took away from him was the ability to stack up his attack speed passive as easily in the jungle. Right. He doesn't have the same level of scaling with that one as he used to, and to make up for that, in the lane, if you're attacking champions, it stacks even faster. So that is specifically what they did to Jax. Tarzan will need to find a way to make that one still work for himself in the jungle, and it might be harder now that his lane is not sending the duo to mid lane. Or are they, Rafa? Or are they?
Ah, well, so this is a little switcheroo here. So they're opting in for Meals to start out in the mid lane when NME sent the 4 mid. And we saw that it gave Truth a chance to scout out Tarzan at his red buff. Notice here that Tyve actually went for a Raptor start because he wasn't being able to path full clear from Raptor camp into red. He's going to skip out on Krugs, though, because he wants to be here for this mid lane push and be ready for the Scuttle Crab at 125.
We're getting a jungle skirmish there in that mid lane. Truth and Tybe come out ahead slightly as they do push away Tarzan, but he actually takes away one of those honey fruits. So Meals, you better go pick those up. They're going to expire. Not wanting to do so. They will unripen in the river fight as they're going to start this up.
Shaded Talon is here first. Jackie is not quite there yet. Shaded Talon, though, is going to go down just because the numbers advantage wasn't quite right for Cloud9, and because NME has all numbers committed, that skirmish easily goes their way.
It's so difficult for Shaded Talent and Jackie to actually get into that fight because there's this giant chunk of terrain in their way in that dragon lane to traverse across. You can see that Jackie was trying to go all the way around it in the north side, but couldn't quite manage it. Does leave his team out to dry, and NME get to pick up those 3 sweet kills for themselves onto all these members that they want kills to go over to. They've got Corki, Zaya, and Xin Zhao now ahead of the opposition.
And I wonder if that was a result of Shaded Talent and Jackie coming up to the mid lane after the first wave, trying to get that crash because they were late to the bottom lane afterwards. And when you're laning into a double range in both Zaya and Janna, it's hard to get and fight for that push as someone like Leona, because yes, you have engage power and all-in power, but if you're getting poked out and you don't get a chance to actually walk up safely, then how are you supposed to fight for scuttle control? And I think it's a little overzealous on Cloud9's part to then even fight for it in the first place, and they get punished for it.
Yeah. Absolutely do. Now down 2,000 gold, and they lost all control of that bottom side river too, where they were going to traverse back and forth between their Kaisa and Leona lane, trying to help out Niels and get him ahead. Now it's just not going to be the case. You have to be very careful about when the Strike spawns, when Truth is going to almost assuredly have that first item completed, likely to be the Essence Reaver, and the package alongside it. Enemy off to a blazing start, and that likely means that they get these objectives as much as they want.
There's 40 seconds left before the first couple objectives spawn on the map between Rift Herald and Dragon. Tybe hasn't had a chance to spend all of his money. He's only sitting on a longsword, but almost at 3k. I wonder if he's just trying to fast clear into his first full item. 3k, I think this allows you to either buy a maybe a Black Cleaver or a Sterix Gauge. Bingo. Bam. He's online, Smacks.
Yeah. We've seen that the build for Tarzan's Jax has been the Trinity Force first into the Blade of the Ruined King. So, and then of course the defensive items come after that, as you are a bruiser. You only really need those first two items, but does get that first item completed, does make his way into the spot side river. You can see that Dienzio and Selma are on a reset. This does mean the Cloud9 get early access in the Drake Pit. If they make anything of it, there is that package.
Package available for Truth, as you said, Smacks, means that this next upcoming objective fight is a little scary. Tybe is walking in, though, by himself, and they have planted a trap from Cloud9. Tybe is able to flash Crescent Guard and dash away to the Scuttle Crab. Is able to get out alive. Selma with the Monsoon will keep him topped off. Shaded Talon and Tarzan still trying to chase after. There is a follow-up from Meals with the Destiny trying to lock down Tybe, but there's another skirmish happening on the top side of the river, and the rest of Cloud9 try to fall back, trying to deal with the Louis after Hexacle Ultimate pops. But look at this, Smacks. Truth has already fallen, but the rest of Cloud9 will go by the wayside. A triple kill, a quadra for Dienzio.
Dienzio with the team fight wipe there, Rafa. NME showing that their front line is far more resilient than that of Cloud9's. You saw that both Tybe and Alui were able to slip out of the hands of all these members of Cloud9 trying to aggress upon them. They couldn't quite get the lethal hit. Enemy don't give over those kills. They keep their Xayah alive with this Infinity Edge first. This quadra kill might as well have just sealed the deal there, Rafa. The quadra kill, the full ace, the Infernal Dragon, and Cloud9 didn't even get that Rift Herald quite yet.
Dienzio skyrocketed 2,000 gold off of that fight, Smacks. Not only he has the Infinity Edge and is working towards what I believe is going to be that Solari Charge Blade, but Jackie hasn't had a chance to finish their first item yet at this point. And because this is the kind of the components built to try and get one of those primary evolutions off, that first item is still going to take a while to come online.
It absolutely is. Shaded Talent now having to pop the Redemption to try to escape this, Rafa, but I don't know if he's going to be able to do it. A nice Solar Flare might have led his path to escape. Enemy aren't quite done yet, though. Tybe trying to dive onto Jackie, and that's just going to be an easy kill. Yeah.
Does not get a chance to get Shaded Talent, as Shaded Talent is able to recall in time. Cloud9 are able to answer back with this Rift Herald on the other side of the map, but NME staying to and committing to the first brick are going to be able to get that gold for themselves. And at this point, Smacks, it is a 6,000 gold lead, almost 7,000. They're going for another turret here, and they're going to get the dive off. Monsoon is going to give them enough healing to be able to survive the onslaught under here. Meals will survive for now, as Tybe is going to make sure that he gets the Audacious Charge in one last time before Jackie does pick up that shutdown onto Tybe. Now Cloud9 are able to pick up some nice bounties here. But the rest of NME, they're... okay, something's got to be done about this turret.
Yeah, the Rift Herald's still alive and healthy for Cloud9. They get to take out 2 entire turrets with it. Let's see if it remains that way. No, it does look like a Louis is going to arrive, but couple kills in the top side for Cloud9 make sure that their Baron laner is quite monstrous. Slight lead is not really something that we expected NME to give over at any point in this game, thanks to their demanding lead in the early game, but yeah, they just did not respond to this Rift Herald at all. Cloud9 pouts upon it, and you can see that they are bouncing back quite well. They were down about 7,000, but no longer at all.
4,000 gold lead now is only the difference maker between Cloud9 and NME. So, NME trying to push their lead further and further into unlocking the game. This is an opportunity for Cloud9 to punish, though. Destiny has already been popped. Louis is on the run. Redemption will be popped. But a gold card and the rest of the goons from Cloud9 ensure that Louis has nowhere to go. And enemy are not necessarily in a position to make a counterattack.
Yeah, no, they're not. Cloud9 bring all 5 members, but nobody is positioned in that dragon lane or in the mid lane, really, for NME, so they can't take out any structures. They're just trying to clear away the enemy team's jungle, which is a nice and valiant goal. Oh my god. Was that stolen?
Oh, no, wait. I think if we look at Jackie... Yeah,
okay,
no,
it was not stolen.
I've got
that
it.
Was so
I've got
close. He's on a ward.
Right, now, Jackie, you know, the thing is, Jackie thought about, maybe I can disrupt this recall, and then thought, wait, that's a really fed Xin Zhao. I don't want this fight at all.
Definitely the right call. You do not want to go toe-to-toe with a Xin Zhao. Although he does have his summoner spells available, but you don't want to use those for nothing. Cloud9, they still are finding these plays that aren't being punished at all. You can see that. Having some trouble canceling any recall.
Yeah, that's the proto belt apprehend that was about to come through from Zello. Almost locked down a Louis into the graveyard. But NME, with the first rotation, Cloud9 are already committed to this mid lane push. They need to be able to unlock the turret and give themselves more access. With more turrets down, it gives an easier time for Meals to pick off any stragglers that are really in illegal zones for NME. Uh-oh. Package comes out as Tive is now into the backline. Crescent Guard has been popped. A 5-man tornado howling gale. Holy camoli, enemy just wipe out Cloud9.
Oh, that was absolutely insane. We're seeing the benefit of Selma locking in the super defensive champion in the Janna. All this utility with the Redemption and the Monsoon, spreading the Ardent Sensor across all of these members. And enemy, they've got 4 champions that use that buff so well. This is such a clutch pick for Selma, really making it work for him. 100% kill participation on this pick. He is really putting in all the work on this Janna.
Yes, Max, I know we're not at the 10,000 gold difference yet, but when you look at what enemy have to deal with, or what Cloud9 have to deal with, oh, well...
That's a Destiny right there.
So now, this is what they need to do. The 5-on-5s, they're not going to work out for you because your backline is essentially down components versus D'Enzio and Truth. Jackie still needs time to be able to come online as the Blade of the Rune King is the only completed item that they have. You still can make plays with this Destiny. However, making those plays means that you can be overextended as Tive is going to try to run them down. Phase Rush didn't get procced, so he doesn't get the extra movement speed boost, but it will force them away. Gets the flash burn from Zello.
Tarzan now taking a greedy path, but is going to get out of this alive. You have to be very wary of just wherever you place yourself onto the rift when you are this far down. Enemy, they gave over that pick thanks to the Twisted Fate Destiny, but now that it's not available, they think that it's best to start up this Baron. They have not swept the pit out quite yet. They do activate the sweeper now, so they know they're spotted. Oh no. Oh.
Well, Zello tried his best to try and stop the Baron, but the rest of the... Oh my god, Tive says, it's go time, baby. We have the gold lead, we have the stats, we have the numbers advantage. There's no way that we lose this fight. And at this point, Cloud9, the way that they're being eviscerated right now, I think enemy are completely right.
Oh, Tive diving in underneath this turret as well. You have to imagine that Meals is dead. Let's see, it's a quadra kill for Truth. Stinky jungler stealing my pentas.
That's happened twice now, Smacks. First, it was the quadra for D'Enzio, and then a quadra for Truth. I mean, last time that these two fought against each other, NME came out as the dominant team in the series when we first saw them clash at the first major in the lower finals. And they're just going to end the game here, Smacks. That's game 1 going over to NME.
No way to defend the base and no way to defend your backline when enemy are so confident to just dive past it all. Cloud9's strategy completely crumbles in the early game and they don't find any way to bring it back afterward.
And Smacks, there's a couple points that we can look back at where things kind of just collapsed for Cloud9, but I'm sure that once we are rejoined by Charmer in just a few moments, that he's going to be the one that's pointing those out to us as well.
I think that would be pretty cool. Although Rafa, I do believe that he comes in after the series is over.
Oh, you are absolutely right. Okay,
As much as I would
okay.
love to talk to our good friend Charmer, I
Man,
do
why
believe
can't
that
we
is
just
the,
talk to Charmer right now? Can he speak to us from beyond the host
Beyond
zone?
realm?
Beyond the realm?
Was that effective since Twister?
There he is!
We willed him back into existence!
This is not on the run of show. We are just running away with it, but that was an absolute bonkers tornado by that Janna in the choke point.
That's what I'm
absolutely
saying.
sealed it. So yes, I will pop in and I will say beautiful job there with the execution on the team fights, jumping on the objectives. I was a big fan. I was kind of yelling, but I'm muted so you can't hear me, but absolutely like
Fair enough.
perfect Janna play.
Oh man, it's so good to hear your voice again, Charmer. I'm so glad that we could just will you in from the host realm. This is great.
Yeah, I mean, there's a certain ritual. There's a summoning that you have to do, and sometimes you'll, cross a stream or two. You'll end up with Zool, but for the most part, yes, for me,
yeah,
I'll be here.
Yeah. You know, hey, you might have to do one of these things where you do the hand symbol things.
Man.
I don't even know
Got
what
the
it looks
dual
like.
camera
Yeah,
tech.
be careful. I'm pretty sure you're summoning Dr. Octopus and Electro right now.
Oh, yeah,
from
yeah,
other
true,
realms.
true,
Like,
true,
don't,
true.
Don't cast that spell.
Oh man, that trailer looks so sick. By the way, oh my gosh, but I don't want to break away too far away from the series here. There's two big fights for me. One, obviously the river skirmish around that scuttle crab at the 130 mark. Cloud9 tried to beat them to the punch and force the fight. Unfortunately, Jackie wasn't able to rotate in time, so they by the time the fight broke out, it was a discombobulated 4-on-3 in favor of NME. They're able to get a majority of their damage down. Jackie doesn't get a chance to contribute to the fight, and that kind of stems from the fact that it's a double range bottom lane, right, Smacks? You get the push advantage shove in, and also the red side of the map there, it's hard for you to easily join the fight because for blue side, you have the tri-bush, so it's an easier path of entrance, but for these guys, if you can't go through lane, you have to walk all the way around through the jungle.
The terrain advantage there is really blue favored, and I think for NME they did a great job of taking advantage of that, and they also did a great job of using Zaya's main strength, which is, having your front line in close quarters and making sure that they are blocking all aggression onto the Zaya, because if you're getting all the feathers through your front line into theirs and you don't actually have to use your ultimate early, then you can save all your defense and you can keep this huge zone threat where the enemy frontliners don't even want to attack your front line because they're just going to get rooted up by the blade caller. So I think they started that off very well just in that first river skirmish, and then from then on out, Dienzio just made the game his own. He got that MVP based on the game stats as you saw on that end of game screen. It was very well done, and the quadra kill too.
It was very well executed. There was an awful lot of peeling going on. They kept him clean. If this was a sports outing, for example, you'd say their jersey was clean. They barely got touched. The front line did a beautiful job of keeping them nice and safe and healthy. And it sounds like we're going to have an opportunity to see them go into game 2. We'll see if they can repeat that success here in just a moment. And I guess this is where I say goodbye. Once again, I go back to my host realm and I leave it to you two.
Bye, Charmer.
But I'll be back.
Thanks so much, Charmer.
I am comforted by the fact that now we have the will and the power to just summon him back. But we'll try to use that. How should I say
Great power
this,
comes great responsibility.
There it is.
Rafa.
Thank you. We were
To tie
on
it
the
all back.
same wavelength. God bless. Go watch the Sam Raimi Spider-Man trilogy, ladies and gentlemen, because especially with the new. At this point, we're just becoming a Marvel sponsor.
Well,
Marvel
I mean,
sponsor us.
it's not hard for the two of us to talk about that. I think we're both big fans. Yeah. Also, definitely check out the What If show. That show is awesome. I really love the episode with T'Challa. That was the last thing that Chadwick Boseman voiced over. So it's very sentimental. It's very wholesome.
Man.
Definitely go check it out if you haven't. We're into the draft
Get
though,
me
Rafa.
emotional on the stream.
Oh, I know. I'm sorry.
it.
Malphite and Senna both banned away. This is more what I was expecting for Cloud9. Taking away the tanks of a Louis, because when Zello is typically at his strongest, he is playing these split push champions where he can just completely avoid all interaction with the rest of Cloud9 and eventually become another threat that the enemies have to deal with.
Now, Cloud9, what is the adjustment? Has they taken blue side, but it seems like for the most part, the Malphite and the Gragas bans remaining the same.
Louis is just so
first
good
pick-
at those.
Yeah, I think maybe the first pick priority, they're just going to try to look for the Corki, as the second fight that they took, where I believe it was a Meals picked up, or it wasn't a quadra kill for Meals quite yet, but the package dispersed them into the 5-man Howling Gale. I mean, a package just offers so much team fighting priority and prowess, but also it's just so incredibly easy for you to shove. But actually, it's the Xin Zhao priority, as Tybe, even with the Jax counterpick that Tarzan had ready. I mean, you saw Tybe and the Phase Rush Xin Zhao tech, which is kind of a new thing that we've seen. Normally, we've seen Conqueror on the Xin Zhao, but I especially like it here because it gives you a little bit more agency to pick and choose your battles. You get your burst in, and then if you realize, okay, this fight is no longer that good, you can just zoom on out.
Cloud9 going for the evil pick of Xin Zhao. I don't know why he's evil, but he is in my head. Taking that one away. I feel like Tarzan was one of the first players to really pull this out in great effect in North America too, as most of the jungle meta up until that point was like Camille and Wukong, but really bringing that one to light, and will have a chance to play
Olaf,
it.
especially.
Yeah, in Olaf too. And he's also pretty strong on the Graves as well. Lots of cool jungle picks for Tarzan, but yeah, it's still going to be the priority on the Darius, and for NME, they're keeping priority over this Janna too, which I really liked for Selma.
More disengaged power. Doesn't seem like they've had an answer to it, but Cloud9, if they already know that they're going into a Janna, then they can match Enchanter with Enchanter power as a 5-man Encore. Definitely hits harder than a 5-man Howling Gale, and you can't monsoon that when you're charmed by the beautiful singing voice of Ariana Grande, aka Seraphine.
Very true. And for Cloud9, they have an opportunity now to perhaps show us the Sona Seraphine lane that I've heard inklings of in North America, but we've seen mostly used by the European team that just won the finals for the Origin Series, otherwise known as No Team, No Talent, which is an amazing name. Previously, the Tribe EU guys over there. They have really popularized the Sona Seraphine lane, and they used it to great effect this week. So if Cloud9, they've got an opportunity to maybe show us that they've been trying this pick out as well. They already have the first piece of it locked in. But, Rafa, they will have to deal with the heavy range aggression of the Ashe and the Janna now, too.
And what we've seen... Oh, there it is, Max! We're getting the Sona Seraphine! Okay, this is going to be really sick. Jackie and Shaded Talent. We're going to see how well they can buff out these two Enchanter lanes into great effect. But that means, since you're having a decent amount of magic damage already coming from the bottom lane, Cloud9 can opt into a stronger physical damage carry in the middle lane, which is going to be up to Meals to see if he can really pound it out with the Lucian. Culling will have a lot of great effect. And then with all these buffs, despite, Darius and Xin Zhao having, relatively short ranges, Lucian also being a short range marksman, this is going to give you the movement speed and the buffs to really be able to fight such a composition that is able to keep you from a long distance range.
And this is an interesting strategy for Cloud9, as they've locked in the Seraphine Sona lane to scale and to have a lot of defense later on. But a lot of the times you end up seeing, with Double Enchanter, a hyper carry champion. And I don't really see one of those necessarily for Cloud9. They've got a lot of early game power in the Xin Zhao, Darius, and Lucian, but when it does come to that late game, they might struggle when it comes to the damage if they don't perhaps pack some of that into Seraphine, or go for the crit strike version of Lucian rather than the tank buster one. So we'll see if that's something that Cloud9 actually does want to do. I believe the scaling of Lucian is actually slightly better than it was before, despite them nerfing his early game quite hard on this patch. So perhaps that is something that Cloud9 are looking to do with a draft like this.
Yeah, full crit Lucian definitely has to be the way to go. Solari Charge Blade Essence Reaver will be his first 2 item power spikes, very similar to Corki. And then you can expect to see an Infinity Edge at some point down the line, whether it's its 3rd or 4th item, and then then it's really on you. I'm also curious to see how well Tarzan is able to adjust his build path as well, because normally we have seen Xin Zhao's run a plethora of builds. Either you see something like the Trinity Force Blade of the Rune King, or you see like Black Cleaver into Blade of the Rune King, so it's a cheaper power spike. Sometimes you even see Xin Zhao's just go straight up full tank.
Yeah.
I don't think the tank option would be the best here.
You've got the Sterex and Death Dance build as well, which I know Tarzan really likes on Olaf, so maybe that's something that he goes for on this one. But just for Cloud9, they're wanting to get to that late game and hopefully have enough damage to kill this Corki. But for NME, they still have that very defensive Janna to have some scaling for their side too. They've got more pick potential this time alongside it, as they do have the Enchanted Crystal Arrow for Ashe, and Tybe is the one who's playing this engaged champion in the Jarv in the 4th. So definitely some fun pick-off options that NME does have, which are very valuable against something like Seraphine Sona.
Yeah, and when you look at the junglers that were available that Type could have locked in, we know that if you tune into Type's stream, he's marked as the #1 Camille and Wukong in NA. Notice how both of those champions were non-locked in for this instance, and it's because that while Camille, Hextech Ultimatum can lock down 1 priority target, Wukong can knock up multiple targets, but it doesn't necessarily lock them down. You're looking at essentially a lot of champions that don't have mobility outside of Lucian's and Zhao. If Sona Seraphine don't have their flash, you can easily Cataclysm them, and then you just throw down the package, and you just burn them to a crisp. And then, that's right. You even get Renekton in there. Big old giant crocodile just, whirling and burning them to a crisp. And then as long as you're able to destroy the Enchanter support backline, then there's no more buffs that is coming to sustain Cloud9 in those extended fights, and then your backline should be able to have enough self-peel with Crystal Enchanted Arrow and Monsoon to keep away from the rest of Cloud9's aggression.
Tybe's going to try to play some Gator Golf on the Rift today, and hoping that Sona is the golf ball. Just knock her into the Renekton's mouth. See if it actually does work out. As I'm really excited to actually see this double Enchanter lane over on the North American server. It's been really powerful and very scale heavy. Pretty similar, I would say, to the Senna Nasus that we already got to see a taste of earlier today. But it has more just like team-wide healing and shielding, I would say. It's less focused around the Senna and the Nasus in the duo lane, and more going for the 5v5 team fights, which I definitely appreciate.
The other thing, too, that smacks is this is probably our 2nd time seeing Renekton in competitive NA Wild Rift. I know we saw...
not picked very often. It's kind of weird. I know Louis really good at it, though.
We saw a little bit of Renekton action during the 2nd qualifier that we just did earlier this week, and it was the first time we're like, oh yeah, how come Renekton isn't picked that often? Because from a solo queue standpoint, he does have a decent matchup into the Darius, because if you're able to close distance and get inside his decimate range within the handlebar versus the actual axe, or the blade of the axe, then he doesn't get the empower damage nor the actual healing. So you're able to out-trade a Darius as long as you're able to get in, Ruthless Predator stun, cold the meat, get the sustain out, and then slice and dice back out, as long as you dodge out the apprehend. Then, because the all-ins from Darius are still kind of spooky with the bleed stacks from Hemorrhage, but and it's still so far Renekton. We like you said, Smax, we don't see it a lot in NA, and I wonder if it's just because it's not a pick because it's a newer champion that came out back in, I want to say June, whereas Darius has been out since beta, so. It's a champion that's probably not as well practiced or not as well experimented with.
It does also sort of get shut down by the 2 big tanks in the Baron lane in the Malphite and Gragas, so perhaps that has something to do with it, not liking those matchups all too much. But I mean, when they're banned away by Cloud9, you got that freed up for yourself. So we'll be pouncing out the opportunity. And yeah, for NME, I mean, they're 1 win away from meeting Tribe in the upper finals at this point, Rafa, and this is a matchup that if it does happen, Oh, they didn't switch sides. Oh!
Oh.
No, okay.
We've been
talking. Okay, so just change the names of everything that we just said. NME is the one who has the blue draft. Cloud9 is on red. Okay, NME are the ones who are playing the Xin Zhao again. They're the ones who are playing the new Sona Seraphine. And Cloud9, okay.
It's okay. It's okay. You know, the nice thing here, Smacks, is that we still laid out the win cons for both of these teams,
That's
right?
true.
And Cloud9, I think now it's cool that you get to attribute credit to like enemies like enemy. They are busting out the Sona Seraphine. You don't necessarily have a strong hyper carry, but the Lucian is going to be your best bet if he goes into the crit scaling. Cloud9 wait out for the entire team composition before Tarzan selects his jungle counter pick of choice. Now, even though we talked about like, oh yeah, you know, if Tybe was here, he probably would have picked Wukong or Camille. I think the logic still applies. I've never seen Tarzan play Camille, but I know he's played Wukong well. And I think Jarvan just completely makes sense in trying to lock down a bunch of these champions that just don't have any mobility spells in their kit outside of Flash.
For Tarzan on the Jarvan, you can see that he's less interested in going for the Jax, at least in this matchup. He did already pick up a win on it today, but not appreciating it against NME, perhaps. You can see a Louis arriving to lane late. This is one of the things that can be punished about that, is you just take a face full of Renekton's, what is that item, or what is that weapon called again? I know it has a name.
The Renekton blade?
Yeah. I can't remember what the item...
Bro, I don't know what to tell you.
I'm Googling it.
Alright, while you Google that, I will keep us informed with what's happening. Shaded Talon actually goes for an early base, and I think they're preparing for a top-level dive. Look at how Shaded Talon is already beelining towards the top side of the map, because Zello was able to get to the lane first. He got a huge chunk out of a Louis, forces the Honey Fruit as well. Shaded Talon's going to be on the top side of the map, knowing that NME, because they are on the same sides as last time, Cloud9 recognized that they don't have an easy access towards the Scuttle Crab. They're not going to opt in for the skirmish, but now they have 4 members here, and if a Louis stays, it's a possible dive that will occur in a Louis, knowing that he is the weak side right now, knowing that Tybe is on the other side of the map. He has no resources. He has no one that can help him. He has to give up a huge amount of farm. Great adaptation from Cloud9.
Yeah, and while we're not seeing the definitive duo lane mid lane, we are still seeing Shaded Talent roam around with Tarzan as the support jungle synergy. Tybe may have found Jackie. Wow.
Oh, no.
Oh, wow.
Well,
both of them.
The play for Cloud9 goes great if
that doesn't happen.
if that doesn't happen. Now, NME are able to trade up because they were... Technically, Cloud9 were the first ones initiating the play, and so because NME are reacting, even though that you're essentially doing the same thing, you would have been slower onto the push of that. But now they're going to try to push the advantage. Louis was down 2 levels, and now playing against level 5s, Tarzan and Zello. Both had access to their ultimates. Truth is here trying to catch the wave here with Dienzio on this Sona. Cloud9, they have already burned both Cataclysm and Dominus. They can't necessarily fight anymore.
Cloud9 roaming around and trying to make this top side of the map their own, but does miss out on any of those kills outside of the one onto a Louis. And as you said, a Louis zoned off of the minion wave, down a lot of that experience in that exchange. Will have to make his way back into this one, keeping Dienzio in this lane just for a little while longer as the only member on his team now to not be level 5. But you have to imagine he'll hit there eventually with the passive experience. Not exactly where you want to be as a lane dominant Darius, but it's just where he's found himself, and for NME they have to make it worth his time and win on other sides of the map.
And Cloud9, despite initiating what was a pretty solid macro adaptation going from game 1 to game 2, NME are able to trade up, punishing Meals and Jackie caught out in rotation, I guess. Not really sure what caused that play to be given in the first place, but Cloud9 are still going to commit towards this top lane push, making sure that Alui is put further and further behind, because you have to remember that, yes, you can put a lot of resources into Dienzio and Selma, but the enchanters are just enchanters. They're not necessarily primary carries. You have to be buffing up the rest of the front line, but if the front line is not even that strong to begin with, then your whole composition is going to start falling apart.
We're seeing that entire turret in the Baron lane traded for this Drake enemy. Locking this one down, ideally for them. They have to worry about the Corki package, but Tybe sticking around will lock that one in. And it looks like they're also going to give up this Rift Herald, not taking enough time to really destroy that Drake as fast as they possibly could. Jackie, though, has already used both Summoner spells and Ultimate. There's no way he can escape this.
Enemy, once again, finding another successful pick, as Cloud9 are still going to be able to trade up on overall turrets and objectives. The first dragon does go over the way of enemies, so they're going to have the stacking buff, which completely perfectly plays into what their composition wants to do as they are going for the scaling comp. But now Louis is down a level. It's pushed all the way towards the turret. So now if you start looking for fights onto the bottom side of the map, if you're able to successfully push out that lave, Louis can never join, because otherwise there's going to be huge amount of minions and experience that he's going to be missing out on that he desperately needs to catch back up.
Not just him missing out, but it could potentially deal detrimental damage to the inhibitor turret if he does go over and rotate. So likely going to be seeing a teleport, at least one on enemy, maybe multiple, just so they don't have to worry about that side lane collapsing while they're trying to do something else around the map. And the biggest thing here, Rafa, is that Cloud9 didn't even use the Rift Herald yet. They did not have to commit that because enemy were so focused on the Dragon lane and the aspects of the map around that. Cloud9 can save that objective and use it elsewhere. You can see the Tarzan bringing it down to the Dragon lane. Perhaps they're going to open up the map yet again.
Now Louis is going to try to match them here, but this time enemy is going to have all 5 of their members ready to answer and be able to collapse as well if it calls for it. Meals, thankfully for him, there's no guaranteed hard engage from enemy that can lock him down, as the Encore and the Crescendo come from a longer range, but the rest of the members are now here. Rift Herald gets popped. Does Cloud9 have a chance to be able to fight this one back? It's still a 3-on-4. Rest of the members coming in. Crimson Chanonero will lock down Dienzio on this Sona, but Cloud9 can't fight against the full 5-man roster.
Wow, they absolutely can't. Even with that Enchanted Crystallero across the entire map, Cloud9 can't find even a single scrap of a kill. Enemy wipe this fight. They save the secondary turret at least. They do, of course, give that one up because the Rift Herald is so powerful, but a fight win for enemy shows that their 5v5 team fight is not to be messed with. Cloud9 continually try to open up the map. Ooh, they almost get another charge with Herald, but luckily for Louis, he does attack the eye in the back.
Now, the way that Cloud9 have to attack the map, because overall, the map advantage is still theirs because of how opened up the top side of the map is. They tried to open up the bottom side of the map as well so that it would allow for easier pincering into this jungle, being able to set up vision, and then you can start going for dives to threaten the mid lane turret, or forcing them to give it up to make sure that you don't go down. But enemy still so far, they're up in gold just because of the picks that they've been able to make of members from Cloud9 just getting caught out in rotation, and this is going to still keep them be able to keep them up to strength with Cloud9 as Cloud9 are trying to make these plays on the map.
And while Shaded Talent is still playing this Enchanter that can disengage for his team, it's not going to be the same as the Seraphine and the Sona, who are very, very ahead. You can see in the gold reflected there, both of them have a good 3 components above Shaded Talent just in the gold alone. So the disengage and the Enchanter utility and the damage as well for Seraphine specifically is going to just be completely multiplied on the side of enemy. So we'll see if Shaded Talent can actually make it more valuable in just his abilities alone, or if he will just pale in comparison.
A second dragon spawning. Cloud9 seems like they don't have choke control quite yet, as Alua is able to have it. But now Cloud9 move all 5 or 4 members here. Jackie is cut off from this point, but just needs to enact the Crystal Enchanted Arrow. And there is the engagement from Cloud9 package, and the rest of the front line just diving on forward. But Dienzio and is able to get himself out alive. Selma was traded out for the cause. It just doesn't seem like there's enough damage follow-up from Cloud9 because now they're on the run. Guillotine with the resets from a Louis. And NME come out successfully once again.
Louis doing so much damage on this Darius right now, Rafa, with the full Trinity Force for himself. That guillotine hurt. Another 4 kills for NME. They do lock in this Drake yet again for themselves. And you can see in the combat stats, they are completely outmatching their opponents in Cloud9. Despite them opening up the map, they can't find a terrain that suits them. They can't find a team fight that they can find any kills in. And it's really falling to the wayside now. I really liked the early adaptation that Cloud9 did to just go for all of these turrets, but without the setup and without the extending vision, they can't find any picks, and that's really the main way to use an advantage like that.
And it just seems like that NME being fruitful with their picks onto Cloud9's members that are caught out, it gave them the gold to be able to keep up with Cloud9 as they exploded turrets, and that gives you a huge gold acceleration power spike. So in theory, the way that this plays out, you know, had Cloud9 don't drop those members in rotation, they probably could have been able to have the stat leads against NME, and then they can take more fruitful fights where they are playing against essentially the scaling composition because of this Seraphine and Sona having to come online a little later. But because they bypassed that, NME, they're the ones winning these fights. They're the ones that are playing the team fights better than Cloud9. And at that point, you know, you can throw all the theory work out the window when if the execution is just better than your opponent.
That butterfly effect spiraling out of control from the early game, just off of that misstep from both Jackie and Meals in rotation. They're completely caught out, and they give over that huge advantage to the Dragon Laners of NME. And, I mean, these are the scaling members, Rafa. You can see there's already 2 items completed for Dienzio. One of them, a fully stacked up Seraph's Embrace. So you're not killing the Sona anytime soon. That extra shielding is massive for this very squishy champion. All this utility is being packed into the squad. Again, the Ardent Sensor is so valuable for all the other members. The attack speed is amazing. They're starting up on this Baron. This is slightly risky, but they cleared out the vision.
Tarzan is still at the same level. He can go in and smite it. But Enzio and the rest of NME are able to secure Baron for themselves. They wipe out Tarzan and Jackie. The rest of Cloud9 members are on the run. The gold lead extends to 7,000. At this point, Smacks, with Baron buff on their side, NME have the tools necessary to start taking down the rest of these structures.
And I'm really shocked that NME went for that play to begin with. That's so risky. You already have such a huge advantage. You know, it's about like a 70 or 80% chance that you win, and I mean, reducing that Baron down to 50% is not exactly the strongest play to be made, but it works out for them. They get those extra 2 kills off of it, and now they have all this pressure in the side lanes to try to equalize those kills.
Could be a potential pick, though. They find Dienzio with the package into the Crystal Enchanted Arrow. Huge bounty being picked up for Cloud9, but now the rest of the members of NME are starting to collapse, and the rest of the damage and the ultimates have already been expended from Cloud9 sources. The reinforcements are just too strong, and that might have opened up a 20-second window where a lot of major damage is going to be done to the base.
Louis tanking up these turrets just to try to keep the minions alive. Maybe they can try to end the entire game. Not going to want to dive a Janna, excuse me, but it's not really going to matter. Shaded Talent pushed far, far away from the base. Can't shield the Nexus when you're all the way over there. And that is going to do it, Rafa. NME make their way to the upper bracket finals that we will now get to witness in just a little bit.
Hey, Smacks, it's looking a lot like the first major. Tribe and NME. They're due for a rematch, Smacks. and you know, I don't want to say that we expected it coming. We're always open, and we always love to see adaptations and evolutions from teams getting stronger from major to major. But man, it like even with the adaptation from Cloud9, it just seemed like NME were just better on the execution overall, being able to just, I mean, if you want to call it outplayed, if you want to call it out team fighting, whatever it is, you know, it credits to Cloud9 though for some of the macro strategies that they try to implement. But man, NME is just a completely different beast, and now they're going to be taking on Tribe in the upper finals as we're joined once again by Mr. Charmer himself.
Yay.
Yeah, I'm back, and I'm apparently back very quickly all day today, at least as far as the broadcast games are going. We haven't had a game 3 as of yet, and based on what I'm seeing, I'm not surprised by that. We are seeing some kind of lopsided affairs, and I don't want to take anything away from the other teams, but it's very clear that so far today, teams are getting early advantages and then using that to just kind of snowball. They know how to push objectives. They know exactly how to push the buttons and force fights that are unfavorable so that the other team doesn't know how to catch up. And we're seeing that here. So I'm really looking forward to this Tribe and NME matchup. Both of these teams have looked nigh unstoppable up until this point. As you alluded to, a bit of a rematch. And so we're going to see, I think, a heavyweight fight here in this upper bracket finals.
And the biggest thing with the upper bracket finals that we're about to get into is that the winner of that qualifies for the grand finals. And you're probably thinking there, yes, Max, I know that. That's how a bracket works. It's more important than that, because if you make it to the grand finals, you're in top 2, and the top 2 qualifies for the championship in October, which we now have a date for, by the way, October 8th through 10th. You better be there, and both these teams are going to want to be there themselves, participating in it. So they're now going to be fighting not only for a chance to get to that finals, but also a lock-in for the championship. Huge, huge stakes on this next match.
Absolutely. And the championship itself is someplace you want to be, not just because we like collecting championships. Everyone likes to be a winner, but also today's major has a $10,000 prize pool, but the regional championship has a $70,000 prize pool. It's a lot of money that the players are going to be competing for. And so if you can lock in a berth for that today with a win, you can kind of, one, put your stamp on the Wild Rift scene and say, hey, you know, we're here to play. We've been winning. We look unstoppable. But also you set yourself up for the big stage, as you said, coming in October. So really looking forward to this upper bracket finals that we're going to be getting to after a break. We are going to be taking a break before we get into that particular matchup, though. So don't go anywhere. Again, we've got Tribe, we've got NME. They've looked dominant. And after the break, we're going to be seeing them square off in our upper bracket finals.